Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to the Bank Corrections webinar. My name is Matt, a new voice to you all, unless you attended my Global Changes session last week. Hopefully a welcome one as that as well. Now, today, we're going to be looking at bank corrections. Any feedback after the session is going to be very much appreciated. So please bear that in mind when we come to the end of the webinar today. Now, what exactly are we going to be looking at? So, as you can tell, bank corrections. First off, we're going to look at different types of bank transactions. We're going to move into the methods of correction. We're going to look at a couple of common mistakes, and then we're going to look at the common corrections for those mistakes. And we're going to be doing this in a demonstration. Then afterwards, as usual, we'll have a look at what's up and coming. And there's some guides and tips I've got for you as well, which are available on the handout. Now, housekeeping wise, if you've been here before, you'll know the rules. If you haven't, here are the rules. Your microphones are automatically muted, so don't worry if you need to cough, sneeze, tell Tiddles the cat to get off the desk, you'll be absolutely fine. You won't interrupt anything that we're doing. If you do want to ask a question, there is a speech bubble there with a question mark. Please, please, please send in all your questions. We've got around about, well, scheduled up to 45 minutes for the webinar today. We've got a full team behind the scenes. We've got Abby, Jackie and Michael at hand to answer any questions that you do have. If we can't answer all of them within the allotted time, we will catch up with you afterwards and we'll get in touch with you individually. As I mentioned as well, there is a handout available and it does include a handy little guide for sorting out your corrections, but we'll get to that later on in the slides. So as I said, today we're going to be looking at bank transactions, the corrections. Now let's have a look at the bank transaction types first. Now this isn't an exhaustive list, it is the most popular list. So typically we have an internal bank transfer, which is a JC, JD, journal credit, journal debit. We have payment on account, which is PASA. We have paying an invoice, PP, SR, bank payment or receipt, BP, BR, and also refunds, SP and PR. There are others, as Arthur mentioned there, there's PD, CP, etc. Today, we're going to focus on the ones that are more common and the ones where mistakes are more often made, if I'm honest with you. If we had 12-hour schedule that we could go through each and every single error and how to correct it, we don't have that much time to go through each individual unique circumstance. So what I'm going to be doing today is just building your confidence in how to deal with an error when it occurs in the banking. I'm going to give you the template, the mold, that when you find there's been a mistake, how do I deal with it? How do I deal with it efficiently and correctly, and so that it doesn't affect my data? And also, how can I avoid it from happening in the future as well? Now, as I said, there's a multitude of mistakes that can be made, multitude of things that can fix them as well, from the quite simple to the more complex, depending on how you keep your audit trail looking and your transaction list. So what we're going to do now is look at the basic methods to apply or follow that'll save you time and effort if or when human error may occur. So what are the options? Here they are. So the options for bank corrections are: number one, edit the transaction. Sometimes it's as easy as right-click edit. You've got secondary is delete the transaction. Obviously, this will leave a red line in your transaction activity, but it leaves it there for audit so you know exactly what's happened. So potentially delete the transaction. Thirdly, post the opposite, balancing the scales. So if you've done one thing here, do the other thing there, in simple terms. Now, which of these you use depends on what the issue is. So with editing, it's mainly only possible if you need to change something in a non-critical field, and that way it won't delete or reverse a transaction. If it is a critical field, you may find yourself having to do either deleting or posting the opposite, or Sage will do it for you. It can be daunting and a lot to take in and sometimes confusing. So what I would strongly recommend, and anybody would recommend this who works at Sage, before you try and fix an error, once you've identified it, back up your data. Absolutely back up that data. Put a mark in the sand, because if you start trying to correct something and you accidentally do the wrong correction, you could end up trying to unpick like tangled headphones. Easier just to say, right, okay, that fix didn't work, let's go back to square one again. The second thing I would recommend after you've backed up your data, if you're using version 30 and version 31, which I hope you all are, restore your live data into your practice data. You can break that as much as you like when it's in practice data. It's a safe atmosphere where you can try these different methods of correction, see how it looks before you then take that method into your live data and fix it there. So 2 points to recap: back up your data always. Number 2, version 30 and 31, restore into practice data. Fabulous, fabulous piece of the software that's there. Utilize it when you can. Now, editing is mainly the one in bank transactions, because that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at bank transactions. Now, editing is mainly the one that you'll find yourself using, depending on obviously how you wish your audit trail to look, because remember, it's up to you to understand what you've done and why you've done it. So to demonstrate what can be edited, there's a slide coming up, and it is in front of you now. I mentioned before critical fields and non-critical fields. Now, a critical field, quite simply, when amended, requires the original transaction to be cancelled and a new one posted. More often than not, Sage 50 will do this for you, and it will notify you. I will show you that in a moment. You've then got non-critical fields. As it says there, amendments can be made with no reversal or cancellation of the original. It simply just updates the transaction for you. Underneath those two titles are obviously lists and bullet points of what is critical and non-critical fields. Again, when you've downloaded the handout, you'll have those in front of you for your record. Firstly, what I think is going to be the best thing to do is jump straight in to a demonstration about the 3 methods of correction: about edit, about delete, and about posting the opposite. And for that in the demonstration, I'm obviously going to be using Sage 50 version 31, but I'm going to focus on just an internal transfer. And this is just to show you the mechanics, essentially. Again, we can't go through every single circumstance. I hope you appreciate that. But I'm going to go through the mechanics of each correction that can be performed. So I'm going to switch over to my Sage 50 now. If you bear with me just one quick second. Hopefully you can all see that there. So we'll start afresh. And there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to head into my bank accounts on the left-hand side, and I'm going to show you the mistake I'm going to make for this. First things first, we're going to do an internal transfer. So bank transfer here. Now what I'm going to do by accident is I'm going to transfer from my current account to my deposit account. So I'm going to go from 1200 to 1210. I'm simply going to put £100 from one to the other. You'll notice the balances will change on this side. I'm going to click save, and I've intentionally made that error. If you're looking through your bank's activity, this is where you may come across it. You'll see in the bank account at left, you'll see your JC crediting out £100. If we head over to the activity of 1210, you'll see the debit in of £100. This is also going to be visible in your transactions section on the left. If we scroll right to the bottom, there we have it, JC, JD. I love this section of the program for being able to look from the left to the right for all the detail of each transaction. But we are going to focus in bank accounts. So what I will do, I know I've made that mistake. I can see it. I will highlight it in the activity of 1200, and I will click edit first. I will select the nominal code, and I'll put it in the correct one, which was 1220, where I wanted it to go. I'll click OK. I'll just double check I'm happy with everything, and I am. Click save, and you can see Sage is doing its thing now, having a bit of a think, and it's sorted it out for me. So now you can see the JC there. And if we go to 1220, we can now see the journal debit into the correct transaction. If we go to our transactions module on the left-hand side, this is where you'll see the journal has been cancelled. And it's telling us to look at the new ones, 1240 and 1241. And it is corrected and reposted for me just by clicking edit. So that would be how to edit the transaction. The second method of correction was delete. So what we can do is we can click on, again, current account at left, click on activity, see the transaction there, and you'll see at the top, delete transaction. So guess what we're going to do? We're going to click on that. It'll show me what I'm about to delete. I'm happy to delete it. So there we are. Do I wish to delete the entry? I do. Sage will always ask you. It will always ask for confirmation, which is brilliant. So we then close, and what does that look like? So in our transactions list, you can now see it hasn't been replaced. It's been deleted. Sage will tell us exactly what's happened to it. Again, the left to right will give us the full details of the transaction itself. Now, just for the sake of speed, what I'm going to show you now is the same transaction again. So from 1200 to 1210, I'm going to put £100 in there. Again, that is in error. It was meant to go to 1220. However, this time I'm posting the opposite. So I'm going to counteract what I've just done. I'm balancing the scales. So I will go to the account in which I transferred it through. As you can see, it's there. This time, I'll click on bank transfer, and I will just basically send it back from where it came. Click save and close. Now, if we head over to transactions, we can see the error, 1200 to 1210, and we can see the correction, 1210 back to 1200. So that's the mechanics of the three methods of correction, essentially. We've got the edited, the deleted, and the posting of the opposite. Let me just quickly show you that there. Again, this is going to be in the handout, just to confirm. At first, what we did with the journal credit and debit is we edited the transaction. You saw that Sage cancelled those transactions, replaced it with the correct information for us. The second thing we did was delete the transaction, which completely cuts the transaction off, ready for us to reprocess it altogether. And the third instance was essentially me just putting it from where it went back to from where it came. It's just posting the opposite, all in all. Now, for the second demonstration we're going to go to, this is one of the more common calls that our technicians receive, and it's all about payments on account and allocating payments to invoices. So we're going to have a quick switch across here to our bank accounts, and I'm going to receive some funds, and I'm going to receive them from Bob's Building Supplies. Common mistake to make here when processing. It may not be yourself making it, may be somebody else, but Bob's paying this £140.12. They will come straight here and they will type in £140.12. And by clicking save, what they're doing is they're creating a payment on account. They're not paying off that specific invoice for £140.12. They're basically just saying Bob's given us £140.12. So Bob's balance will go down. His account will be less of £140.12. But if we go to Bob's account again, you'll notice the sales invoice is still outstanding. And there's also that SA, that payment on account from Bob. So the problem we've got here is the customer account balances, but things are still not married together when they should be. So how do we fix that? Quite simple, quite easily. Again, customer receipt, locate the account as we did to notice the error. We leave this box completely alone. We locate the invoice and we pay in full. We locate the SA or the payment on account, and again, we pay in full. We are telling Sage that £140.12 is for that £140.12. They should be married together. We then click save, close, and if we return to lovely Bob's account, gone. So the SI is gone and the payment account is gone. So that's how we would allocate. And it's quite a common call for technicians is my customer's account balance is absolutely fine, but there's still invoices outstanding. That tends to be why something hasn't been allocated. To quickly show you the opposite. So let's say I'd made a mistake there and Bob said, I just want that £140 on my account. I don't want it to be for that invoice. Again, come to your transactions module. You can see it here. The payment on account has been attributed. The left to right tells you everything that you need to know. What you'll now notice is there's a button here which is not grayed out any longer. Unallocate. It does exactly what it says on the tin. So you click on allocate. What you're essentially doing is separating that payment from that sales invoice. So if we head back to Bob's account, after we've clicked unallocate, you can now see they're separate again. One is still there and one is still outstanding. Just for the sake of it, I'm going to repeat the allocation. So it will be highlight the SI, pay in full, highlight the SA, pay in full, marry these two together, click save. Look at that, done. So I'm going to close out the Bob's account there. So what do we effectively do there? To minimize that so we can go back to our slides. Here we have it, payment on account. So essentially what we did was we allocated an SA, same process for PA to an SI, make sure the payments are allocated correctly. What we then did as a demonstration is we unallocated that payment to separate them, to make sure that they weren't married anymore, so that one could be allocated to anything else it would need to be allocated to. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, and we'll move back to the screens. We've got another demonstration now. And as that slide is giving it away, it's going to be on tax codes, nominal codes, and the date of a transaction. So these are three things, again, that can be incorrectly input when processing at speed. And they are quite easily corrected also as well. Sage will largely do the work for you. In this instance, as if by magic, what I'm going to use is a payment that's already been registered. Now, I've been looking through my transaction as a Sage user, and I've noticed this transaction here, transaction 1237 from my bank account, 1200. It's gone to nominal code 7301. It's for a petrol payment. It was on the 1st, it was input for the 1st of December. It's for £120. There's several things that I've noticed are incorrect with this transaction. Number one, there's no VAT on there, no tax on a petrol payment. Number two, I know that the date shouldn't be 01, it should be 10 for the 10th of December. I've also noticed that it's to the wrong nominal code. So what do? Now, in bank accounts, in the activity, I can locate that transaction, which is just here, 1237. Two things I could do. First is delete and reprocess, but for the sake of the demonstration, I'm going to show you how to edit. So I will click on Edit Transaction. First thing I notice is the date is incorrect. It's just a mistype. Instead of 01, it should be 10, so I'm just going to correct that one. For the demonstration, I'm going to save that change, even though there's further more mistakes to correct. But just to show you, ask you, do you wish to post these changes? I'm confident, yes. Just to see how that would then look, transaction, back to transactions on the left. Sorry if I moved too quickly there. Transaction number was 1237. And what's happened is that 1237 has stayed exactly the same. The transaction number has not changed. Even though we've added the date, the transaction is still 1237. Sage has created this transaction here, and it's advising us to check the original because it has made a change. So highlighted in red, it used to be 0112. Now it is 1012, as it should be. So I'm going to change the rest of that transaction now that I know what needs to be fixed. So back to my activity, back to my bank account, back to the transaction 1237, and back to edit. As you can see in this version of the edit window, some of the things are grayed out, and we obviously cannot click into anything that is grayed out. Furthermore, though, on the bottom right-hand corner, there's a further edit button. Once we click on this, it will unlock the ability to edit some of that information. So nominal code, for me, in my sake of processing, I have 7,300. Yours might be different. You may process differently. To me, this is just for an example, but I usually put that into fuel and oil, 7,300. I'll click OK and make the change. Not only that, I've noticed the tax code is wrong as well. £120 was the total, but none of it was for VAT, so that potentially is going to be wrong. So I would want to change that to 2.1, and Sage will ask me, do you want to recalculate the tax for the new tax code? We click yes, but should be 100, that should be 20. So once we've done that and we've checked everything is fine and we're all happy, we will click close and we'll click save. Do you wish to post these changes? Yes, we do. Sage will then do its thinking again. And if we go back to our transactions on the left-hand side, scroll down to the bottom, you'll see again, 1248. 1237 has not changed. The original transaction is still the same. A new transaction line has been created in red to notify us that there has been changes made to transaction 1237. This is what it previously looked like. And this is what it looks like now. Correct. All correct. Present and correct. So if we head back to our slides, this is what we did there. So we amended the date, we amended the nominal code, and we amended the tax code successfully. As you can see, in each instance, it cancelled the original transaction, but it maintained the transaction number. It just edited what was there. The asterisk there is just to let you know that all those transactions amended were a critical field. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense to you all. Any questions, keep them coming along. I noticed there has been a couple and Jackie's picked them up. So thank you very much for that. But any questions, please fire them on. And now we're going to go to our final piece of demonstration. And this is quite a complex area. It's to do with the deletion or editing of a bank reconciled or VAT reconciled transaction. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these two issues because we've got standalone webinars for them. And like, again, we could spend hours going through these in each and every single outcome. So I'm just going to give you a high level view of how editing something in the bank transactions can affect your bank reconciliation and your VAT reconciliation, okay? So let's switch to, I'll say 50, and let's have a look. So first thing we're going to do, let's get back to our stage 50. We're going to pick on a bank reconciliated, I'm making up words now, bank reconciled transaction. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pick on this one here. You can see 1210 bank payment, electricity direct debit, and that was reconciled on the 30th of June. Now let's say, for example, we're going to be deleting that transaction. What we would be doing, if you imagine your reconciliation as a Jenga tower, remember that old game with the wooden blocks? When you delete a bank reconciled transaction, you are taking out a Jenga block. It's no longer a complete tower. That means your bank will not reconcile. So what you need to do is once it's been deleted, you need to pop it back in. So if we were to view this transaction, the most important thing that we do before deleting it is we make a note of all of this information here, okay? We make a note of the nominal code, we make a note of the details, the amounts, the tax codes. The most important is when it was bank wrecked. That's the most important date. I'm going to pick on a different transaction, actually. I'm going to pick on this £100 one here. It's a bit easier to explain. So if we view this transaction, you can see it was bank wrecked on the 10th of December 2024. Very important to remember that one. Because we're taking it out of that date range, when we're re-inputting it, we need to put it back into that date range. Okay, so this is a petrol payment from 1200 on the 10th for £100, nominal code 7300. Let's say we need to delete that. So we delete. Sage 50 will tell us it's been bank reconciled. If it's deleted, it will affect your bank reconciled opening balance for the relevant bank account. Do you wish to continue? We're going to click yes because we want to delete it. What we would then do, if we wanted to replace it and pop it back, we would go to our bank accounts. Bank account we wanted to go from, bank payment, 1200. Remember, we recorded all the information. I sometimes do a screenshot or a snip, depending on what version of Windows that you've got. Or you could write it down if you're old school, pen and pad. I know Michael loves a pen and pad. And then what we'll do is we'll select nominal code 7,300, £100 there. And for the sake of this, it was £100. I'm going to say zero rated. I know that's incorrect, but it's for the sake of the demonstration. Then what we do is once we've registered that payment, we've now created the payment that we deleted. We've recreated it. What we haven't done is we haven't put it back into the Jenga tower. We haven't put it back into that reconciliation. In order to do that, we would find the transaction in our transactions list here. We would right click, edit, and there's the button there. Put a little tick in that box. And this is why it was important to write down when it was reconciled, because in there, I'm going to slot it back to where we took it out from altogether. Going to click save. Before I do that, you'll notice that the transaction highlighted just here, where my mouse cursor is, there is no bank reconciliation date. As soon as I click yes, it's going to say again, Sage will always warn you, this transaction has been bank reconciled, because I've just told it that it has been, and it will manually attribute it to that section there, which is fantastic. Very quick, very easy to do, a little known area of the program. Again, it can be quite daunting, confusing, but if you follow the steps and you just view the transactions, if they've been reconciled, if they haven't been reconciled, you'll be able to correct that error without affecting your bank reconciliations. Now, what will happen if something has been VAT reconciled? So I'm going to go back to the electricity one, and we're going to say this has been VAT reconciled, but it's an error. We've already informed HMRC of it, so they're already aware that we'll pay the VAT on it, but it was an error. We need to change it. When you come to delete this, which is what you would do, you would delete the transaction. Sage is going to tell you, do you wish to reverse this transaction? So what Sage will do, it will automatically post the reverse of the VAT onto your next VAT return. So it will include it as a reverse on the next VAT return itself. Again, more information on the VAT corrections that we have, but for the sake of this, we click yes. And then on your next VAT return, that will notify HMRC that was an error. You are now free to type in the correct transaction if there is one, or just leave as it was if it was a complete error in the first place. So Sage does the majority of the heavy lifting for you there. You just need to make sure that you're deleting the right thing, the right time. Again, always take a backup before you do any of this. If not, like I said before, go into your practice data, open your live data into practice data, and play around with it. Try the 3 different methods of correction, see how it looks for your audit, because there's no wrong answers here. That's just how you wish for it to look, if that makes sense. So we've had a couple of questions so far, but there doesn't seem to be any more. If you want to fire your questions over now, that would be wonderful. I'm going to head back to the slides. I'm just going to show you a couple of things. So, should be able to see the slides now. This is what we've just done there. Bank reconciled versus VAT reconciled. We added a reconciled transaction, processed it back manually, and we tucked it back in to the reconciliation. So we took it out like a deck of cards, like the Jenga tower, but then we tucked it back in. We told Sage, no, we've already done this once we corrected it. The VAT was auto reversed by Sage for you, did all the heavy lifting. Then it's just up to you to either process the correct transaction, or if it was a complete error, just leave it. That cash accounting works the same. It's the same as above. Okay, so Sage will just auto reverse things for you once it's been deleted in that instance. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, keep your questions coming in. But today, just while we're waiting for more questions there, what we've looked at is common errors and their fixes. Not all of them again, but the majority of what we get calls for, the most common areas. how to identify them and fix them quickly so you can carry on with your day. Also, tips on backing up your data and restoring it to practice data. We covered in quite extensively the 3 options of bank corrections, but to look at, so edit, delete, post the opposite. Something that is included in the handout, I'm going to show you now, it helps with posting the opposite. And it's what our technicians use when they're learning. And so when you speak to our experts, this is part of the guides that they use. Hopefully it makes sense to you all and you can see it. It is basically the type of transaction on the furthest left column, so BP, CP, VP. Furthest right column, you've got the opposite. And in the middle, you've got the description, how it's entered, and what does it mean in real life. This is brilliant to print off and just have by your desk. Because if you ever do need to post the opposite of a transaction, rather than Google searching, scratching around, just quickly look at this table and you'll know instantly what you can do. Further to that, included in the handout, we've got our help and resources. So how to delete or reverse a bank transfer that we went through on the first demonstration. Our correction series, which has gone down a storm, is available as well for you to rewatch. And we've also got what information can I edit on a transaction as well. So again, that goes into detail about what can and can't be edited and the consequences of that also. Don't forget, free learning content at Sage University. Bite-sized video guides help you learn how to use all the features available in Sage 50 accounts, as well as what's new. A lot of new content coming, as well as Sage Copilot, information on that as well. Upcoming webinars. So we have festive messaging Wednesday the 11th at 11. We've got global changes with myself. That's Thursday the 12th at 11. And we've got running your year end, which is always a popular one at this time of year. Very informative one, that one on Thursday the 19th of December at 11. More information on pre-recorded, already recorded, webinars and up and coming ones is sage.co.uk/webinars. So there doesn't seem to be any further questions coming in. So what I'm going to do is thank you all very much for your attendance today. Hopefully it made sense. If you could leave feedback, that would be absolutely wonderful. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. So I'm going to close the webinar now. Thank you very much. Bye for now.